Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with this tutorial. This is the introduction. I do have my notes here so that I can stay focused and on track for this video because, hey, it takes time to get this stuff done. But these sewing machines that I have are the Brother sewing machines. I have a Project Runway limited edition, and then I have an XL-2230 Brother sewing machine that I've had for a couple of years now. I still have the manual to this one. Yes, I do use it. I read it. You should do the same for yours. Unfortunately, when I purchased this one off of eBay from a private owner, I did not get the manual, but you are able to find manuals online. So first things first, always make sure you read your manual. I'm going to give you really one good reason why I feel that the Brother sewing machines are best for beginners and professionals alike. One of the most cool things about these sewing machines is that they have diagrams. So I'm going to focus in here. They have diagrams here to help you to be able to thread the sewing machine and to be able to wind your bobbin, which I'm going to show you all of those things in here. So as you can see, these are two different sewing machines, but they still have the diagrams to them. So this one is electric and this one is kind of like a dial manual. So yeah, they still have the diagrams to show you how you can be able to use your sewing machine. So that's one of the very big reasons why I prefer Brother as a sewing machine for beginners and professionals alike. Now, the next thing that I am going to show you is how to wind your bobbin, and I'm going to do everything step by step. I have all the materials that I have here that you will need. Make sure you have a thread. I have two bobbins, but one is already threaded. So these bobbins, they come with the sewing machine. You can also find them at fabric stores as well or online. So they use the plastic bobbins. So I have two because I have two sewing machines out, but I'm only going to be threading one of them. So this is the thread that I'm going to be using. I have some nippers or any kind of fabric scissors or scissors period will work. And I have a few sheets of what we call muslin fabric just cut up, and I'll show you what I will be using them for, and that would be a great practice for you until the next video. Alright, so to wind the bobbin, we are going to focus at the top of the sewing machine, and as previously stated, it has the diagrams to help you to be able to thread it so that we can wind the bobbin. Now when you're sewing, that means you need top and bottom threads in order to put two pieces of fabric together. So that is why you are winding the bobbin, because the bottom is your bottom thread and your spool of thread is your top thread. So I'm going to put everything in its place. And I have the thread that's out and ready. And then I have the bobbin, which actually goes here. So I'm just going to press it in there and leave it there for now. Now I'm going to go ahead and follow the directions in the guidelines to go ahead and be able to thread my bobbin. And once all of that is done, I'm going to make sure that the thread is threaded through the bobbin. So I followed the guidelines that were set here and from here so that I can thread the bobbin. So next I'm going to go ahead and thread the thread through the bobbin. So I'm going to pick it up so it makes it a little bit easier for me to go in between the barrel and up into the hole. There are usually four holes, two on top, two on bottom, and so you can see that I'm threading it through the top. So I'm going to place it down, and usually what happens is you're going to have some extra thread that's hanging through the top of your bobbin. Now some people hold this and let it wind. What I do is I'll take that thread and I'll drop it in and tightly wrap it around so that I don't have to worry about trying to hold it or cut it or it getting winded in the top of the machine from the bobbin. So once that is done, I'm going to push it over. That means you are allowing the bobbin to wind. If you have it in its original position, that means you're going to allow the sewing machine to work. So that's two different areas. In this case, we want to wind the bobbin. So once it is over, you're going to press your presser foot and let it wind. Once it's done, you can let it wind for as long as you want and how much thread that you want on there. But usually this nice little push here, once it has got to a point where it's kind of full, it'll push off on its own. So it'll click off on its own, which is not a big issue. I don't really do that often. I just wind it till about that much. The reason why you have to have this tension going on in order to wind your bobbin, because this thread has to be tightly wrapped around the bobbin, just like it's tightly wrapped around the spool of the thread. So that helps with the tension, the stitching, everything. So that is why you are dealing with it being threaded through and creating the tension so that it's as tightly woven here as it is on the spool of thread. So once it's all done, all you have to do is just clip that off, and now you have your bobbin winded. So now we're going to go ahead and thread this bad baby. Now that we have thread, I'm almost out of thread, and this is the old spool, no, well, not spool, but bobbin. And I'm going to use these to thread this sewing machine. So I'm going to start from the top and then show you how to work the bottom where the presser foot and everything is, and then we'll go from there. So as mentioned before, your brother's sewing machines, most brother's sewing machines have diagrams on how to thread the spool of thread. There are different places that you could place this based on your sewing machine, and place it on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread it here. So I'm pulling it back, and they're numbered to tell you which direction to go. And then the next place is looping it through here. So I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to pull it up, and then on my right side, on your right side, you can see my finger pointing to it. This is the needle dial. It's a manual turner, so it turns the needle up and down, but it also controls the looper that is moving on the inside, on the left side of my sewing machine. So as I'm moving it and you see my finger, my ring finger, that metal lever is moving up and down. I have to take that thread and make sure that it loops around it. So now you can see that the thread is looped. Alright, so now we're getting ready to thread the needle of the sewing machine, and there's some kind of weird things going on at the bottom here that might seem confusing. I do have a sewing machine that has a self threader on it. I don't use it that often. I guess it's just from years of being able to just put the needle through the eye. Well, put the thread through the needle of the eye, but I rarely ever use it, but this does help for you. I'm going to actually loop the thread behind a metal hook that's in the back, so that keeps it in place. So now you can see it's in that metal hook. And then and on all sewing machines, doesn't matter the brand, well, most of the time, you want to thread from front to back. So you're taking your thread and pushing it through the eye of the needle towards the back of the machine. Your self threader will do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this thread out. And I'm just going to pull it towards the back for right now. So now we're going to take our bobbin, and it does have a diagram in it as well on how you place your bobbin in your sewing machine, but to show you that your thread should be able to roll out towards the left of your body. It should not be turned towards the right, if that makes sense. I just want you guys to see that. So you actually shouldn't have it turned this way. You should have it turned this way where it seems like it would be able to unravel towards your left side. And that's how you're going to place it in the sewing machine, which is based on the diagram that's shown here. I'm going to open that up, remove it, and then I'm going to place it in there. So here we are based on a diagram. There's a nice little arrow that we have here where you need to place your thread underneath that. And there's a little area where you can leave enough thread out to the side. Once that bobbin is in place, always put your cover on before you begin to pull the thread from the bottom of the sewing machine. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. So now we're going to pull the bobbin thread up through the sewing machine. And what happens is your top thread, which is towards the back, and that's from the spool, and your bottom thread, which is from the bobbin, needs to be in between. These are called dog feet and the presser foot, and there are different presser foots. They need to be in between so that you can be able to put the fabric through and actually sew two pieces together, because you will have a top thread and a bottom thread that will weave or wove or whatever you want to call it together. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the top thread and I'm going to hold it, and I usually like to hold it on this side because it should be falling back here. So I'm going to hold it on this side. I'm going to turn the dial, which I told you what that was previously, to the right of your machine, and I'm going to turn it towards me so that the needle goes all the way down into the sewing machine. And then I'm going to bring it back up. I'm going to keep turning, sorry. I'm going to keep turning until it starts to grab the thread, and you can see the thread is moving. And as my thread comes all the way up and my needle comes up, there's a loop there. You should be able to pull the bobbin thread through. And then you will place your top thread in between the presser foot, if that makes sense. I'm going to show it to you guys in another angle, but you should have your bobbin thread and your top thread right in between there. Alright, so let's see that threading method again, but this time I'm going to do it without the presser foot there. So I'm going to take the presser foot out so you guys can actually see what it looks like. And I'm going to hold my top thread. I'm going to turn my dial towards me and continue to turn until the needle comes up. And what happens is it grabs your bobbin thread, and there's your loop. If you are unable to get that out with your fingers, take closed nippers and pull it out. And now what you see there is thread coming from the bottom, and you have your needle threaded from the top. Now I'm going to put my presser foot back on, and I'm going to make sure both threads go through the top and towards the back. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up and share if you found this video helpful. Make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's video on basics to using your sewing machine.